There's been a lot of talk in recent weeks about the possibility of a recession, especially after the stock market sell-off caused by all the uncertainty around Trump's tariff plans. Some are going even further and warning that we could be facing a depression. But what actually is the difference between a recession and a depression? Well, if you go back far enough, the answer is nothing. Throughout the 1800s and early 1900s, depression was the word used to describe the bust phase of the boom-bust cycle or business cycle. It often followed a panic in the stock market or banking sector. In other words, depression was the word describing what we call recessions today. What were panics and depressions are now crashes and recessions. The word depression has stuck around, though, to describe an extreme or prolonged recession. This is obviously a reference back to the Great Depression in the 1930s. However, it is unlikely that we will see a depression of that magnitude in the very near future. A recession, depression, downturn, or whatever you want to call it, is the process of the economy correcting itself after some widespread malinvestment has been revealed. Malinvestment happens due to credit expansion, when the government helps create currency and inject it into credit markets. That warps the entire structure of production, and if you zoom way out, it means the economy is now producing some things more than it should, mainly capital goods, while not producing enough of other things, mainly consumer goods. The entire market process is geared toward producing goods and services that consumers value enough to buy. When that process is pushed off course by monetary policy, it locks in a painful period of correction. Obviously, the scale of the malinvestment is a big factor in determining the duration and intensity of that correction, but so is what the government does during the downturn. The reason the Great Depression was so bad was because President Hoover and later FDR came in and prevented the economy from correcting itself. They artificially propped up wages and prices while using the power of government to lend money to businesses offering things people weren't willing or able to buy. The result was a perpetual recession and permanent mass unemployment. It was a complete disaster that largely remained in place until the government changed course after World War II. Thankfully, the government has not tried the same approach, at least on the same scale, in the recessions that have followed. However, their current approach is still terrible, for different reasons. In response to recent recessions, the government has resorted to dramatic credit expansion, which, if you remember, is what causes all the malinvestment that made the recession necessary in the first place. This can make the recession seem short, as we really saw in 2020, but it also stops the correction process in its tracks and gets businesses to recommit to the projects they were just starting to realize are unsustainable. It defers and worsens the problem. It is unlikely that the government will adopt an approach similar to Hoover and FDR's New Deal if the economy finds itself in a clear recession in the next few months, which is good. But they will likely instead kick the can down the road again by restarting the monetary expansion process to paper over all the malinvestment businesses are now starting to pick up on, which will only serve to make the problem bigger and guarantee that we will face more unnecessary recessions in the future.